Disclaimer. This content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Lena Hart, I'm 34, and I've been in love with the same man for almost a decade. It used to be the kind of love that made my hands shake just unlocking the front door, knowing he might be standing there. The kind that made my body lean toward him without me even realizing it, in crowded rooms, in bed, even mid-argument. I used to feel like we were made of magnets, like there was some invisible string keeping us tethered. And now, some days, I feel like a ghost in my own house. We met when I was 25, just fresh out of grad school, spinning from too many late nights and chasing ambition like it would save me. Noah was calm. Not boring, never boring, just grounded. He looked at me like I was some wild spark that might flicker out if he didn't hold me gently enough. Back then, he made me laugh without trying. He kissed me like we were in on a secret no one else could hear. God, those kisses. We used to kiss just to taste each other. In the kitchen, brushing shoulders while cooking, in the car at red lights, even in the grocery store, grinning like teenagers behind the bread aisle. It was effortless, like breathing. But things don't stay suspended in time. The first few years were magic. We traveled, we fought, we made up in hotel rooms and against doors and once on the floor of our first apartment, surrounded by moving boxes. We built something real. And then life happened. Work stretched us thin. His long hours, my freelance chaos. Our communication turned into to-do lists and calendar invites. We still kissed, but it started to feel procedural. He'd kiss me goodbye in the morning, lips barely grazing mine. Or reach for my waist in bed out of habit, not heat. I remember one night last winter, I'd just showered, slipped into this deep green robe he once said made me look like sin itself. I crawled into bed, leaned into him, and his hands slid across my hip with a kind of distracted fondness. No spark. No tension. I turned away after a minute, blaming the chill in the room. But it wasn't the room. It was us. There were still moments, warm, tender ones. I'm not here to pretend he stopped loving me. He didn't. But the way he loved me changed. It felt responsible. Loyal. Dutiful. Like I was a favorite shirt he didn't wear anymore but couldn't bring himself to give away. And I started craving things I didn't know I'd buried. More than sex, though, yes, that too. I missed the ache of anticipation. The pause before a kiss. The tension that lives in silence, in barely brushed fingers, in knowing eyes. I missed being looked at like I might ruin him if he let me. I missed feeling dangerous. And then, there was the whisper. It wasn't premeditated. It slipped out, almost like a sigh. We were having dinner with some friends. I was laughing, wine warmed and feeling strangely alive. I caught Noah watching me, really watching me, for the first time in weeks. His gaze darkened, lingered. Something in my chest fluttered. Later, we were clearing dishes in the kitchen. He stepped behind me, close, too close. His breath touched my neck before his lips did. It sent a shock straight through me. And before I could stop myself, I turned just enough, my mouth near his ear, and I whispered, "You're making it hard for me to be good." His hands froze. His whole body stilled, like I'd just spoken in a language he forgot he knew. I didn't mean it to be seductive. It was a confession. A crack in the wall I'd spent months patching up. I think I wanted him to see me again, not the partner, not the wife, not the woman keeping things running, but me. Lena. The woman who once made his heart race just by looking at him across a room. And in that frozen second, something shifted. Not in him. In me. Because I saw it, not just the hunger flickering back in his eyes, but the ache in my own reflection. The longing. The resentment. The loneliness I'd wrapped in sarcasm and busyness for so long. That was the moment I knew. Everything had changed. And I couldn't keep pretending otherwise. Noah's a firefighter. The kind of man people write headlines about. Reliable. Brave. Hands that know how to carry weight, buildings, bodies, grief. People think that kind of man is always strong. But I've lived beside him long enough to know he sometimes forgets how to be soft. Especially when it comes to me. After that night, the whisper in the kitchen, I thought maybe we'd cracked something open. I expected a shift. A conversation. A long look that said, "I see you again." Instead, the next morning, he brought me coffee with a kiss on the forehead and a quick, "You okay?" like I'd sneezed, not confessed something I didn't even have words for. I nodded. Of course I nodded. What else do you do when someone misses the meaning entirely? It became a pattern. He started touching me more, like he was trying to compensate. His hand lingered at the small of my back longer than usual. He reached for my thigh while driving. A quick smack on the butt in the hallway. I know that's how he loves. Touch has always been his language. But it started to feel loud. Like he was trying to turn the volume up on something I hadn't asked for. And the more he touched me, the more I felt like I was disappearing underneath it. It all came to a head one ordinary Tuesday. I was in the laundry room, folding towels that still smelled like him. He came home early from a 24-hour shift. I was surprised. He usually showered at the station. But today he looked tired. Dirty. Beat down by something more than fire. I turned to greet him. He didn't say a word, just pulled me in. It wasn't rough, not exactly. But it was rushed. Heavy. Like he needed something from me I couldn't give. His lips were on my neck, hands beneath my shirt, and my heart, instead of leaping, sank. I let it happen for a moment, hoping maybe I'd catch up to him. That something inside me would awaken, remember how this used to feel. But all I could think about was how long it had been since we'd talked. Really talked. "Noah," I said quietly, placing my hand on his chest. He paused. Looked at me, confused. I hesitated. "Can we slow down?" He stepped back, blinking like I'd slapped him. "I thought this is what you wanted," he said, voice flat. "The other night, in the kitchen, you whispered that thing, and I thought you were saying, I don't know, that you missed this. Us." My chest tightened. "I do. But it's not just this. It's not the touching I miss." He frowned. "Then what? What is it?" I opened my mouth. Closed it again. How do you explain that what you need isn't a hand on your waist but a window into his thoughts? That you don't want to be desired, you want to be understood? "I need to feel close to you," I whispered. "Not just skin close. Emotionally. I feel like you don't see me anymore. You touch me, but you don't ask how I am." "Not really." He looked away, jaw tight. "I ask." "No," I said, voice cracking. "You skim." He didn't say anything. Just stared at the ground like it might give him answers. And I hated how fast the guilt rolled in. Like I'd broken something by needing more than he was giving. Like I was ungrateful for a love I used to pray would never fade. He finally spoke, voice low. "I'm doing my best, Lena." I nodded. "I know. But so am I." We stood there in the quiet, the laundry room suddenly too small, too bright. That was the thing about our misunderstandings, they weren't explosive. They were slow. Subtle. A series of almosts. Almost saying what we mean. Almost reaching each other. Almost fixing it. But the space between almost and actually? It's lonelier than silence. And I was starting to wonder how long we could stand in that space before one of us stopped reaching entirely. Noah had just gotten out of the shower. His hair was still damp, curling a little at the edges like it always did when he didn't towel it dry enough. I was standing at the stove, stirring something I wasn't even hungry for. Lentil soup, or maybe chili. I honestly couldn't remember what I'd started with. He walked up behind me, shirtless, warm from the steam. His arms slid around my waist, and his lips brushed the top of my shoulder. I didn't flinch. Not outwardly. But inside, my whole body tightened. "Smells amazing," he murmured into my skin, voice low and sincere. I forced a smile and said, "Thanks." But I was already doing the thing I promised myself I wouldn't, pulling away in all the ways that don't involve moving. His hands drifted to my hips. I stood there stiffly, pretending to keep stirring as though that little motion could make the moment feel less suffocating. "I missed you today," he said. That used to mean something. Now it sounded like a reflex, something people say when they know they should. "Missed you too," I replied automatically. But I hadn't. Not exactly. I'd missed something, the version of us that didn't feel so choreographed. His fingers traced under the hem of my shirt, light, suggestive. My chest tightened again, not in anticipation, but dread. "Can you not?" I said, too sharply. He backed up a step, hands raised like I'd just accused him of something. "What did I do?" "Nothing," I muttered, shaking my head, turning off the stove. "I'm just tired." "You're always tired lately." His voice wasn't angry, just bruised. "You don't even look at me the same anymore." I opened my mouth, ready to say that's not true, but the words caught somewhere in the back of my throat. Because it was true. And it wasn't fair. But neither was being touched like a puzzle he kept trying to solve with the wrong pieces. "I'm trying here, Lena. I really am," he continued. "You don't talk to me, you pull away when I touch you. I don't know what you want from me." I didn't answer. Because I didn't know either. Or maybe I did, but the list sounded ridiculous in my head. I wanted him to sit with me without touching me. I wanted him to ask me how I felt, not just if I was okay. I wanted him to notice the way I'd been shrinking, day by day, until I didn't even recognize my own reflection. I wanted him to want more than my body. I wanted to want him again. But instead, I just said, "Let's eat before it gets cold." He exhaled, long and slow. "Right. Sure." At dinner, he tried. He made small talk about a guy at the station and told a funny story about a stray cat that wouldn't leave the firehouse. I laughed, even meant it for a second. But then he reached across the table and brushed his thumb over my knuckles, and I went cold again. Not visibly. Just inside, where all the disconnect lives. I hated myself for it. Afterward, we did the dishes in silence. He handed me a towel and leaned in for a kiss. I gave it, because what else was I supposed to do? But I didn't feel it. Not even a flicker. His mouth was warm. Familiar. Soft. And I felt nothing. I went to bed early. He followed, climbed in beside me, tried to pull me close. I pretended to be asleep. And as I lay there, staring at the wall in the dark, guilt heavy on my chest like an anchor, one question echoed louder than anything else. Why does everything have to turn into sex? We were at our favorite restaurant. The one with the dim lights and mismatched silverware and too loud jazz. We hadn't been in months. Noah had made a reservation, pulled out my favorite navy dress from the back of the closet, even ironed it himself. He was trying. I could see it in the stiffness of his shirt collar, in the way he kept checking his watch like he was afraid I might not show up, even though we drove there together. I smiled when he handed me a single sunflower from the gas station on the corner. I even laughed when he called it economically romantic. I told myself to let it be enough. Just for tonight. We ordered a bottle of red we used to love, though I hadn't had a taste for it lately. We made small talk, safe topics. The neighbor's awful new fence. The dog we didn't have but always said we would. I nodded and smiled and tried to find warmth where it used to live in me. And then he reached across the table, laced his fingers with mine, and said, "Remember that night in the kitchen? When you whispered that thing to me?" I froze. He smiled, soft and hopeful. That moment, I swear, Lena, it lit something up in me again. I miss that side of you. I miss us. I want you like that again. I didn't say anything. Because what could I say? That I whispered it out of hunger, not seduction? That I wasn't being sexy, I was unraveling? His hand was still wrapped around mine when I whispered, "Of course you do." He blinked. What's that supposed to mean? The words spilled before I could stop them. You want the version of me that made you feel good, the one who flirted and giggled and reached for you first. Not the me that's tired. Or confused. Or doesn't want to be touched unless it means something. His smile faded. Where is this coming from? I pulled my hand back. It's not coming from anywhere. It's been here. You just don't see it. Lena, he said gently, I'm doing everything I can. I'm showing up. I'm touching you, kissing you, trying to connect, exactly. My voice cracked loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. You touch me like it's a checklist. You kiss me and then wonder why I'm not melting into your arms. It's not about the wine or the dress or the sex, Noah. It's about the space between us. He sat back, wounded. So what do you want me to do? Not want you? I laughed, bitter, unrecognizable. I want you to see me. I want you to stop acting like a butt grab fixes what's broken. He stared at me like I'd just insulted him in public. Maybe I had. I didn't care anymore. I whispered that thing to you, I said, quieter now, because I wanted you to notice that I was still in here, barely. And all you heard was an invitation. He didn't say anything. Didn't reach for my hand again. His jaw tensed. His eyes went glassy in the candlelight. I shoved my napkin into my lap, looked away. The silence stretched. Long, awkward. Irrevocable. And then the waitress arrived with our entrees. Perfect timing. I cried in the car. Silent, embarrassing tears I didn't try to hide. Noah didn't say anything. Just drove. When we pulled into the driveway, I mumbled, I'm sorry. He turned off the engine. I don't know what you want from me, Lena. I'm not your enemy. And God, that hurt. Because he wasn't. And I didn't want him to be. I wanted him to hold me without thinking it had to lead anywhere. I wanted him to sit with me in the discomfort. To stop trying to fix it with his hands and start trying with his heart. When we got inside, he went straight to the bedroom. I stayed in the hallway, my arms crossed over my chest like armor. I wanted to rewind the night. I wanted to unsay so many things. But more than anything, I just wanted to feel like me again. Not this version who couldn't even receive love without flinching. Not this woman who felt guilty for needing more than what looked good from the outside. And not the girl who whispered something in the kitchen, hoping it might wake them both up, only to realize he heard the wrong thing entirely. It's been 2 weeks since that dinner. We've become experts at avoidance, gliding past each other in the kitchen like strangers who once shared something sacred. We still sleep in the same bed, but with this invisible border drawn down the middle. He doesn't reach for me anymore. I don't pretend to be asleep. Some nights I lie awake, facing the wall, listening to the quiet weight of his breathing. I wonder if he's awake too, wondering the same things. Or if maybe he's just given up. Sometimes I want to turn over and touch his back, just rest my hand there, say I miss you. But the words die before they ever reach my throat. Noah's always been quiet by nature. But this is different. It's not just silence. It's absence. He doesn't hum in the mornings anymore when he makes coffee. He barely eats. He stopped asking if I'm okay, maybe because I kept saying I was when I wasn't. And still, I miss him. Not just the man who made me laugh at 2 a.m. in the middle of laundry, not just the partner who would rub my feet after long shifts or remember to bring home that weird granola I like. I miss us. The rhythm. The safety. Even the chaos had warmth before. But now? Every room in the house feels like it's holding its breath. I caught him sitting in the garage the other night, just staring at the toolbox he's had since he was 19. I stood at the doorway for a few seconds before he noticed. He didn't say anything. Just nodded at me, then looked back down. He's hurting too. I see it. I feel it in the way he holds himself, tighter, smaller. I know that dinner broke something in him. And I know he probably doesn't understand why. And I can't decide if that makes it worse or just sadder. I've played that night over in my head 100 times. The sunflower. The hopeful look in his eyes. The way I tore through it like it meant nothing, when it did. It meant everything. But I couldn't let it be enough. Because it wasn't enough. Still, I wonder if I could have found a gentler way to say it. A way that didn't leave us buried under all this silence. I missed the way he used to say my name like it was a secret. I miss his hand on the small of my back, not when he wanted something, but when he just needed to know I was there. I miss being able to look at him and feel seen instead of studied. But I don't know how to find that version of us again. I've tried starting conversations. Light ones. Want to try that new takeout place? Did you see the neighbor finally took down that hideous wreath? He answers politely, but it's not the same. There's a wall now, and I think we both built it. And still, I ache. I ache for the man who held me that night in the storm, when the power went out and we lit every candle in the house. I ache for the woman I was back then, trusting, open, unafraid to be adored. So now I stand in the hallway, looking at our bedroom door, heart in my throat. Wondering, is it too late? I think of reaching for him. Not with guilt. Not with performance. Just, with truth. But what if I open myself again and he only sees the brokenness? What if he stopped waiting? I slide down the wall and sit on the floor, knees tucked to my chest. I stare at the door like it might answer for me. And somewhere inside the ache, the confusion, and the fear, a question rises that I can't ignore anymore. Do I try one more time, or finally let us go? He was in the living room when I finally walked in, TV off, lights low, scrolling through his phone like he wasn't really looking at anything. I stood in the doorway for a long moment before saying softly, "Hey." He looked up, startled, like he hadn't expected me to speak first. "Can we talk?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah. Sure." I sat down beside him, close enough to feel the warmth of him, but not touching. The air felt heavier than it should have. "I've been thinking about everything," I began. "About how I've been, about how I've made you feel." He stayed quiet, eyes on his hands. "I know I shut you out," I continued. "And I wish I'd said what I needed before it all boiled over. I wasn't fair to you." He looked up then. "It wasn't just you, Lena. I didn't listen. I touched you when you needed space. I mistook silence for peace. I kept thinking if I held on tighter, I could fix it." My throat tightened. "I think," he said, his voice low, "we started loving each other the way we wanted to be loved, not the way the other person needed." A pause stretched between us, not awkward, but heavy with things we finally understood. I nodded, tears stinging. That night in the kitchen, when I whispered what I did, I wasn't being playful. I was breaking. And you didn't know. I don't blame you for that, but it matters. It still matters. He reached out then, slowly, gently, and brushed his thumb across my cheek. A single tear fell, and he wiped it away like he used to, back when everything felt whole. I miss us, he said. But I don't know how to get us back. And neither did I. We sat there in silence for a while, letting it settle. Not trying to fix it. Just letting the truth breathe. Eventually, I leaned into him, resting my head on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. He just wrapped his arm around me and held me quietly, like he remembered how. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a new beginning. It was goodbye. Not dramatic. Not cruel. Just the soft closing of a door we both left open too long. When I got up to leave the room, I paused at the hallway. He was still sitting there, eyes closed, his head tilted back against the couch cushion. "I'll always love you," I whispered. His eyes opened slowly. He gave a tired, sad smile, the kind you give someone when you know it's the last time you'll ever be exactly here, exactly like this. "I know," he said. And then he looked away. And I walked down the hall, into the bedroom, into the future, into something I didn't have words for yet. I used to think love was about being wanted. That if someone reached for you, physically, emotionally, even just in passing, it meant you were safe. Chosen. Worthy. I believed that intimacy would fix distance, that affection would silence doubt. That if I whispered something daring into the right ear, I'd stay unforgettable. But love, real love, is so much quieter than I ever realized. And more complicated. When I whispered, "You're making it hard for me to be good," I wasn't trying to seduce him. I was trying to say I'm slipping. I'm trying to hold on. I'm trying to stay the person I promised to be, but I feel myself fading. I wanted him to hear the plea behind the tease. But he didn't. He smiled and pulled me close, and in his eyes, it was just another intimate moment. For him, it was sexy. For me, it was a crack forming. The beginning of an unraveling I couldn't name yet. Looking back, I don't blame him for not hearing the difference. Most people only hear what they want to believe. I was just as guilty of that. We both were drowning in separate oceans, waving at each other, thinking we were fine. I think the most dangerous part of a long-term relationship isn't the fighting. It's the quiet. The polite smiles. The "I'm okay, that isn't okay." The way you start choosing silence instead of honesty because the truth feels too heavy to say out loud. And the truth is, I was lonely. Lonelier with him than I ever was alone. Not because he stopped touching me. But because the touch started feeling like a transaction. A routine. Something that filled the space between us without truly connecting anything. I wanted to feel understood. I wanted him to kiss me and mean it, not as an invitation, but as a homecoming. But I didn't know how to ask for that. Not without sounding ungrateful. Not without making him feel like he was failing. And that's the hardest part. When love turns into a performance of gratitude. When you feel guilty for needing more when you already have something. We tried. God, we tried. And maybe that's what hurts the most, that sometimes effort isn't enough. Sometimes two people really do love each other, and still get it wrong. Still drift. Still lose the thread. But I don't regret it. Any of it. Because I learned how to hear myself. To trust that quiet ache inside me that said, you need something deeper. Not louder. Not more dramatic. Just truer. Noah and I didn't end in flames. We ended in silence. In two people sitting on a couch, holding each other for the last time, without a single word of blame. And that's its own kind of love story, isn't it? One where goodbye isn't war, it's mercy. I don't hate him. I don't wish him pain. I hope he finds someone who hears his love in the ways I sometimes missed. And I hope I find someone who asks me how I'm really doing before they kiss me. But even if I don't, even if I stay alone for a long time, at least now I know how to listen to the voice inside me. The one that whispers not to be good or perfect or easy. Just to be real. If I could go back to that night in the kitchen, I'd still whisper those same words. But maybe I'd follow them with, and I'm scared. Please see me. Maybe that would have changed everything. Or maybe not. Either way, I'm not ashamed of how it ended. Because it taught me that being loved isn't the same as being known. And now? Now I want both. Or nothing at all.